Hello, 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 beloved, and welcome to another episode of Life in Common podcast. I'm your host, Annette Rose, and today's episode is called Death and Dying. Now, many of you know I lost my mother approximately 5 years ago, and I certainly looked for a happier title, but this is just the way that it came to me. This was Mother's Day weekend, and today happens to be my mother's birthday. She would have been 84 years old today. So for me, posting on Facebook this year, I posted myself. Why did I do that? I have never done that before. I did that because I had such profound sadness this year. Every year I post my mom or woman in my life, and I was unable to do that because of the profound sadness and missing her so tremendously. Now, I always like to share a few facts. There are 5 stages of grieving. Here we go. It's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This is widely known. However, I don't know if everybody realizes that the stages of grieving are continuous and they don't come in order, and neither do they have a timeline stamped to them. You can go through any one of these stages at any time. Here we are 5 years later, and I still experience depression and anger, bargaining and denial. All those things come in waves depending on where you at your stage in grieving. Okay, so for us, we knew that my mother was passing for about a year and a half, and that was very difficult because you can imagine all the hospital visits, doctor's visits, medication changes. I lived at Shoppers Drug Mart, collecting medications and changing of medications and appointments back and forth to the hospital where she would travel on her own or we would take her. I became really annoyed with my phone because, let me explain this to you. A lot of people are like, Annette, I called you and I didn't get you. And to this day, my ringer and notifications are off on my phone because during that time, like I said, doctors and hospitals and pharmacists were calling all the time. But also, some of those calls were like, oh my God, this will be the call where it is the end, because that was the warning that they were giving us. So to this day, I have no notifications on my phone. I do not get a message notification that you called, that any apps, all notifications are off. And that's what they call PTSD, because that triggers an anxiety in me because of the experience that I had when my mother was passing. My brother puts it beautifully where he says, imagine going to see somebody that you love so deeply every day, and every day they are dying. Now, this might be hard for some to take. This is my personal experience. But as I said to you, for Life in Common podcast, a lot of these stories are very therapeutic for me. As in posting the picture on Facebook, I think 200 people liked the picture, with no clue that, I just couldn't post my mother. It was just too heavy of a burden on that day. And the encouragement came in with so many people, and it was very therapeutic for me. It was a blessing for me because there was more behind the post. All right, so it's not an easy road. Like I said, 5 years have passed, and some days, this is what I want people to know, that some days are great. Some years are great. Some months are great where, you think of positive times, and other times you think of the fact that it is not fair that your loved one has passed. In my anger stage, I remember saying, God, here I am in the world. I have no father at the moment, or my father has passed away, and my mother has now passed away. And here I am uncovered in this world. Like, is that fair? I thought also of my children, who I was my mother's primary caregiver for probably the last 12 years of her life. She was healthy and well, but she was living with me and my family. So the kids, of course, had grown so close to her and would see her daily. They bonded and they would watch TV and they would laugh. And I said, God, it's not fair to them. Like, how are they going to cope when this staple in their life has gone now? What are they going to do? I was so angry. And of course, one day I'd love to talk to somebody that what happens when you're angry with God, of all people. But I realized that the grieving process is exactly that. It is a process. And grieving the loss of a loved one is one thing, but you might be grieving the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job that you loved, the loss of a friendship. The stages are exactly the same. You get angry, you get depressed, you go through a period of this can't be happening. That's the denial stage. Like, there's no way I'm losing my mother. There's no way I'm losing this relationship. There's no way I'm not going to be able to function in this job. What am I going to do next? And the stages of grieving, like I said, they come in different waves. They do not come in the same format, and there's no timestamp. I believe over time it gets easier to work your way through the stages, but I don't think at any point you forget about the loss. And the next point that I would like to make is it is okay not to forget. I believe that society kind of puts you in a box to say, okay, it's been a year. Okay, it's been 5 years. That's enough. But no, I want to normalize remembering. It is okay. Sorry. For instance, if I'm able to post last year because I'm in a better place, and this year I'm not able to post because I'm profoundly sad, that is okay. It is okay to share good memories and share pictures. It is okay to remember, because forgetting puts you in a place, right, where you're forcing yourself to go through stages that you're not ready for. And why forget the love? Why forget the experience? It's okay not to forget. It's okay to walk through your stages as you see fit. It is okay. Nobody has a blueprint for grief. I mean, if you're writing, if you're thinking, if you're texting, remember that nobody has a blueprint for grieving. Sure, we have these guidelines of how the grieving process is, but nobody can tell you how to grieve. Nobody can tell you that it's not okay to remember. Please remember that it's okay not to forget. Now, I don't want to make this a heavy and a long podcast. I do want to take the time to remember my mother, who was amazing. She impacted so many people in terms of her spiritual life. She was a spiritual mother to many. She was a praying mother. She did not like conflict. In her own way, she was a quiet and still force. And to this day, I hear people telling stories about her, and I love it because it is okay not to forget. So what I say today to what I call Sister Moncrief, happy heavenly birthday. That's how I used to refer to her. And to everybody who has lost somebody close to them, a loved one, a family member, a parent, I admonish you to go through your process and be allowed to remember the way that you see fit. And to everybody else, because it's not only the loss of a loved one, there's losses in life, as I've mentioned, and please allow yourself to go through the process, and please allow yourself not to forget. And that has been today's, I was going to say Wednesday Wake Up, but that has been today's Life in Common podcast. Ciao for now, everybody.